it's funny, you want to grow up so fast, but you don't realize the cost growing up
Yeah,
that fast.
yeah.
So I think, with hustling, you're in that mindset of, oh, I got to get it now. I got to get it. I got to keep going. I got to keep pushing. Got to keep pushing.
Hmm.
But it's okay to take your time.
Yo, 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 what is going on, my podcast people? It is your boy Cam, not KX. Your boy Cam back with another podcast. I believe it is episode 12, man. I'm loving the numbers keep going up, man. We are gonna continue to get this podcast out. No matter how close I cut it. I think the last podcast was actually uploaded like at 12:01 on Monday. And I don't like that. We cut it too close. YouTube was giving me trouble, but we're gonna get this podcast up. But as you can see, I do have a special guest with me. My on-call barber. I got a little lineup. I mean, I got a little lineup from my my station barber, but this is my on-call barber. I've been talking about Mr. Anthony Foreman. Say what's up to the people. Introduce yourself.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm Anthony Foreman. I've known Cam, man, for a long, long time.
Yeah.
I'm from Rockford, Illinois. I had just graduated from Michigan State University in December, which with a bachelor in science and psychology. And
Mm-hmm.
right now I'm working at this place called Rosecrans, which is a non-for-profit that deals with mental health. I
Gotcha.
do crisis assessments where like I'll go out for crisis calls with children and adolescents, and then
Mm-hmm.
I will make a decision on what the next steps are regarding what they tell me in the assessment and go from there. So yeah, that's
Wow.
just a little bit about me.
Wow, man. I mean, jumping straight into that job. I think that's I actually got the chance to see Anthony a couple months ago or a month ago in person for a very long time, but he was just starting this job, and it's been a couple weeks now. But I didn't even know it was that detailed. I thought you were kind of are you doing like telehealth or something like that? But going and actually going on the ride along and assessing that situation, that's interesting, man. But yeah, like you said, he graduated from MSU, came to the blue state, get his degree. Um, but that actually led to us seeing a lot more of each other. He was actually able to we go to the same church. So he was able to come to the church that was stationed in Detroit, Michigan, a lot more often, rather than the one that he goes to in Rockford, Illinois. And so that led to even better relationship that we were able to grow. Like he said, we've been together for or not been together, known each other for a long time. Um, and yeah, but yeah, like I said, jumping straight into that job, man. Tell me a little bit more about what you do and what's been your experience in terms of coming out of college and like going to an actual job and learning, like actually being a part of the learning process and how that's mentally taxing. What has your experience been?
Yeah. So, I mean, basically what I do, or I'll explain the whole process. So, what happens is we have this thing called access, right? And so,
Hmm.
what access is say the school calls access because a kid is going through a mental health crisis, whether
Gotcha.
the behaviors aren't safe or the things that they're saying aren't safe.
Hmm.
So, with access, they get the call, they write all the information down and they dispatch it to our team. And then with our team, we have a rotation of who goes out first, second, third, or however many people are on shift. And so if you're getting out, the access person will, hey, can you take this call at this school or at their house? Say
Hmm.
yes, go from there. Read the presenting is what it's called. So I
Okay.
have that information. We have like a little system where if they have had mental health crises before, we can go in and see what's happened in the past, who else
Right.
has assessed
Record.
them, different things like that. Yeah, their record. Um, so then after that, I take that information, I make some phone calls to what's called the call referral. So I'll call them, say, hey, what's going on? I'll
Hmm.
call the parents to gain consent for the assessment, and then I'll go out to where it is. Then I will talk to all the people there. I'll talk to the client, which is normally the child or adolescent that I'm going to be assessing.
Mhm.
We assess with these like standardized assessments by the state and also by Rosecrance's standards.
Gotcha.
Um, and so, yep, after the assessment, I will make what's called a deposition. And basically, what that means is I will, determine with the help of a qualified mental health professional
Mhm.
whether or not we will deflect them, which means that the situation can be handled. The person and the people involved with the person can keep them safe. We're going to create this plan to make sure that they're safe, and then they'll go on home and then follow up after. Or we will hospitalize them. So if the things they're saying are, pretty severe or pretty serious, we want to get them in a hospital and get them the help that they need in that intense monitored setting with managing meds, talking through the things that they're, going through with groups and different things like that. So that's
Right.
that's the main part of the job that I'm in now.
Mhm.
Um, Coming up in the summer, it's going to be a little bit slower because kids aren't going to be in school. So
Right.
then my job turns into more case management. So, for instance, I'm responsible for a certain part of Rockford, like with the schools there. And so
Right.
basically, what that means is like the kids in those schools are my clients. So with the
Okay.
case management, I will, just check up on them, say, hey, how are things going? How's either counseling, if they're in counseling, how's life going after, whoever's gone out and assessed them. And then just basically help them with coping skills, help them with, just dealing with life, being that extra, voice to talk to, or, another ear to listen to what you got going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically the crux of the job. And then you said, what's it been like learning?
Yeah,
Man,
what's the
it's
learning
like
process been like, man?
it's so this job has to be fast paced. Like you have to learn a lot with experience. We always
Gotcha.
have this funny joke. This is my fourth. I just finished up my fourth week,
Okay.
and I'm like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
man, I didn't learn this in training. I always say like something comes up, I didn't learn this in training. So
Right,
it's
right,
like,
right.
but that's the point of the job. You have to get
Yeah.
out there and experience it. This is
Mhm.
the first week where I started going out on assessments on my own.
Okay, yeah, I was
So
gonna ask
I
about that,
had to
okay.
take, yeah, the first couple weeks, the first week was just all really just video stuff, shadowing
Right.
someone, seeing how they do assessments, different things like that. And then,
Mhm.
the third week, I started doing assessments with someone coming along with me. And this is
Mhm.
that first week. And it was tough, but it comes with confidence. It comes with experience, knowing
Yeah.
and learning how to do the job. But yeah, it's fast paced. Like literally, there was a specific training called like a I am cans training that my boss wanted me to do within the first week just to get the ball rolling much quicker and to
Mhm.
get going on the job. But yeah, it's weird because you go to school for 12 years and you have that mindset of knowing what that's like. Like, okay, I
Right.
go to class, I have gym, I have art, music, whatever the case may
Mm.
be, your extracurriculars,
Yeah.
whatever. And having that mindset and then going into college is such an easy transition.
Mhm.
But then going from 16 years of that, including college, and then
Right.
going into, okay, this is a job. The things that you learned in school kind of apply, kind of help. But then it's also
Right.
like there's so many things you have to learn within being in a job as well. And,
Right.
it's tough. It's tough. And
Yeah.
then also okay, I gotta get up and go to work. Like I can't be late. Like there's real penalties for being
Real
late.
life penalties. I
So
can't just miss
it's
class, it's not like,
no, yeah.
yeah.
So it's crazy that I'm 22. I'm in that position where like, man, like this is a real job, like real benefits, like decent pay for a first job within the field. Like,
Yeah.
it's just I'm just blessed, just really blessed to have the opportunity. But it's tough. It's very tough.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I think that's gonna be something, that's something that I haven't experienced yet. And um I experienced it to a certain degree with the job that I had in college. I was a tech support at Penn State, and it was, to me, I didn't like the job because while I knew a lot about tech and I knew a lot about how to do the basic things, when you're on call and you have to, you have to manage a call all by yourself and you don't have anybody to help you. If
Yeah.
somebody calls in and say they are an experienced technician, they're calling in asking you how to figure out these things, and it's like, yo, you have a degree in like tech, and you're asking me how to figure out things
Right.
working with the Penn State system and things like that. And so that was definitely kind of daunting. But then also, being responsible in terms of making sure that if I do, whatever shift I signed up for, I'm there, and that if I'm not there, then I'm getting written up. And that was, I think I got rid of like one time, within 3 months. But it when that happened, I was like, man, like this is a real job. Like I can't.
Yeah.
There is no like leeway, and that's why, like, man, I traditionally, like, I didn't go after like any traditional like labor jobs when I was in high school. I kind of
Yeah.
just wanted to. I've always had a thing for working, for myself, and that's not a point to say that not working or working a labor job is bad at all. It's just that for me and what I wanted to do and what worked for me was, having my own schedule. So like I know that I talked to you about how I was delivering the scooters around Detroit,
Mhm.
and doing that was great because it's like if I forgot, it was cool. Like there was nobody
Yeah.
coming after me, and then if I didn't want to do it that day, I didn't have to do it. And I was like, man, I really like that. But yeah, man, I think that's super interesting. But I think going straight into, into mental health here, how no, okay, I got a couple, it's a loaded question here. What
Yeah. Of
made you
course.
want to go into this field?
Mhm.
2 is how did you, deal with, did some of the things that you were learning in this field help you with your own mental health in college, the ups and downs of college? And
Yeah.
then how would you advise, what are some things that you do now having learned all of this stuff, and obviously you're still learning, but having learned all of this stuff, what are some of the things that you do now to take care of your mental health, and you think would be applicable for other people?
Yeah. Absolutely. So I had went into psychology. I was first interested in like about junior year, just thinking about the mind, thinking about like talking to people, helping people. Like I've always
Hmm.
enjoyed that. I've always been, someone that people can go to in high school about any and everything. And I was just, willing to listen. I had a lot of friends who went through a lot of stuff, and obviously I've been through some stuff. And so
Hmm.
I just really enjoyed that. I love hearing people talk and saying what they've overcame, and some of the things that they're dealing with in any way I can help. And then senior year, took AP Psych. I high school, you do things very, very, just trying to get by, just trying to,
Right,
just.
right.
And I there was a point in time where like I had a D in the class. Like it was
Okay.
just bad. Like I
Yeah.
started off bad because I did something I shouldn't have done. And then I had to work my way up. And
Right.
then when I took the AP exam, I got a 3. And I'm thinking like,
Okay.
man, do I still want to really do this? And
What?
then
Wait. What is 3? I don't even. I can't remember. I never took AP.
oh,
I was
oh,
never
okay. Okay.
because I
So
took AP classes, but then I never
yeah,
took the AP exam.
the
Like I was
exam.
like,
Okay.
yo, I'm good.
Gotcha. So with the AP exam, 5 is the highest. I think that's the best
Okay.
score. 4 is
Gotcha.
like, your B range. 3 is about your C range. And with
Okay.
threes, some schools accept them, some schools don't.
Don't.
That
Right.
would
Yeah.
have been
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the credit. Like I would have been like I
Yeah.
would have had credit in Psych 101 if I would have got either a 4 or a 5, depending on the school.
Right.
3
Yeah.
is
No, I
kind of like,
remember.
okay, I kind of knew, but I didn't know enough. So it's like, it's a mute point. And then 2 and 1 are just just not good at all. But so I got a 3, and I'm like, I still do want to do this. So
Yeah.
obviously took Psych 101. Took What did I take freshman year? Man, this is only 4 years ago. It was okay. I'll just start with, I took Psych 101 first semester of freshman year. And I loved it. I loved the professor. I loved all the stuff that we were learning, well, I was relearning actually.
Right. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I did well in the class. I succeeded. And I remember emailing my high school teacher, like, hey, like, I didn't do what I was supposed to do. But,
Right.
because of the way that you taught and the things that I learned, I was able to succeed at the next level in college. And this is something I want to do. And she was
Yeah.
appreciative of that. And so, yeah, just wanting to, know how people kind of tick, know how the brain kind of functions, why we kind of do certain things.
Right.
With psychology, it's not an exact science. It's a
Yeah, yeah.
huge gray area science. Like,
Yeah. Yep,
I
yep, yep.
could study the brain and know the different functions and know why people would do certain things based on their brain structure and based on, their upbringing, but I can never predict what they're actually going to do. And that
Right.
part is what intrigues me. It's like every case of the same thing is not the same thing every single time. And
Right.
that's
Yeah.
so cool. You have to adapt. You have to know, okay, well, it's like this, but it's not exactly like this. And I have to make those adjustments as is. So
Mhm.
yeah, that was how I kind of got into it. Second
Gotcha.
question was what I, do to help cope, right?
Well, so the second question, they were 2 and 3 were kinda similar, but the
Okay.
second question was, what did you like, where did you find your mental health while you were going through college? And then
Mhm.
where did you feel that some of the things that you were learning applied to your own mental health,
Gotcha.
in college? Or just in
Yeah.
general in your life, you know?
Yeah. It's funny because I had to learn to talk to people about the things that I was going through.
Mhm.
Being the oldest of a single parent, you get in this mindset where I have to help mom out, but I can't tell mom what I'm going through because she already has herself, me, and then my siblings already to deal with. On top of being a
Yeah.
single parent, trying to figure out life, and so that was something that I always had struggled with, especially when I got older. When I was younger, like I kind of had hints of it, but when I was older, it was just you just think a lot, and that's kind of the
Mhm.
thing, that's good and dangerous. That your ability to think does so much to your mental
Damn.
health. Don't- yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Think
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
think
We'll get
about
into it. We'll get it good.
it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, so just opening up to people, finding people that I trust and just talking
Right.
and listening. I that For me, that's just what helped, being
Mhm.
able to relate to people who are going through things and just seeing them overcome that. That's kind of what I had saw that helped me be like, okay, I can do this if they can do this. If they can
Right.
share, I can share. And then
Right,
that's
right.
really kind of it. And then in terms of like different things that I've learned in school and how it applies to work, it's weird because, like, yes, you learn these things in school, but it's really generalized to a certain
Mhm.
extent. And again, I could have been better at taking better notes and going back to those notes that I learned in school. It's like, oh, this is how it applies there. But
Right, right,
because
right.
it was so broad and it was a general idea, I have a
Mhm.
relatively general concept of how I could help somebody regarding their mental health or how I could give them coping skills. I personally have to do more research in that, and that's what I've come to realize within this job. They
Yeah.
provide you with some materials, some different things that you can try with your clients, but in reality, um, that's the bare minimum, right? So I have
Right.
to do more research on my own with reading and looking at different articles, which is something I just didn't normally do, but I want to do because I want to do my job well. I want to be able to provide all that I can.
Yeah.
But you learn the general stuff. You learn about anxiety, you learn about depression, you learn about different triggers for people with different things, like saying certain words or saying them a certain way.
Mhm.
Just openness, just being able to be an active listener, being open to what people are telling you, and being able to process what they're telling you, and
Mhm.
also being able to, for lack of a better word, stomach what they're telling you, right? So, like,
Right.
some of the
Yeah, yeah,
things
yeah.
that I've heard already with 4 weeks being in the job, just with some of the things that kids are dealing with, is crazy to me. Like,
Right.
it made me realize, wow, I really did have sheltered, good, however you want to say it, life. Like I
Yeah, man.
seriously,
Yeah, yeah,
you
no, no,
you
no. I fully understand what you're talking about.
yeah, I mean, I grew up kind of in a bubble with, schooling. So I was in gifted, and then I went to a private school for high
Mhm.
school. And then even with Michigan State, like, yes, it was a public school, but the people I surrounded myself with
Right.
only allowed my experience with so much. And then I come back home, and then obviously I grew up in Rockford and lived here for so long, but you don't see some of that stuff unless your job requires you to go into those
Right.
situations. So it's been
Yeah.
very eye opening, and it motivates me to be like, this is what I see that's going on in my city. What can I do, or how much of
Yeah.
myself can I give to help out?
Right. Yeah. I think that hmm, yeah, I think oof, that's a lot to unpack. I want to go back to a point that you were mentioning in terms of let's see if I can recall this correctly. In terms of being able to, open up and talk to people, and feeling that you have to take on the responsibility of everybody. That yes, you have problems and yes, they matter, but
Mm.
they don't matter more than the problems at hand, for everybody. And so you're like, okay, I gotta just figure out what my problems are. But I have to, there's more important thing. And I think that can be something that's super dangerous and that I find myself
Absolutely.
doing a lot. And then I am starting to learn to be better at. Um, because it's just that I'm a people pleaser. I like to make
Absolutely.
sure that everybody is happy in whatever decisions are made, or
Mhm.
the happiest that they can be. And so I don't like to, I'm there if somebody wants to listen. I think it's interesting that you mentioned, that in your high school you were with that person that people could come to and they could, tell you their problems. And I think that I was that person in middle school,
Mhm.
because I knew everybody and people,
Right.
I kind of was the mediator and figuring out problems between my friend groups or just talking with people, that were in one friend circle and just, they just had problems on their own. But then when I got into high school, that kind of dynamic changed because I only had a very smaller, number one, it was only 200 people with that were
Right.
my same age or in my same grade. So that was going from 1,000 to 200, and then 200 people that I did not know. Like
Right.
of those 1,000 I went into, I actually would have known almost half of them just because of the situation it was where the all the schools that I went to growing up, those schools merged into two high schools, and
Yeah.
so the high school that I went to, all the people from all those different schools would have merged into that one high school, and I would have known most of them. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, coming into high school, not knowing, many people, I kind of just surrounded myself with really one friend group. I only had, one major friend group, and then I had, a couple of other friends. But I wasn't really that person anymore. I wasn't really talking to people, talking about my problems or anybody else's problems. But in high school, I could feel myself putting the weight of other people's
Mhm.
problems, whether that be
Yeah.
parents, whether that be other friends, and trying to fix it myself. Putting in
Yeah.
all the effort that I could, put forth to help with their problems or just not get in the way, not be a burden, as in to add to their problems, which would mean not talking to them about the problems that I was having,
It's a bad
and
cycle, isn't it?
yeah, 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 yeah. And it's and at the time I'm thinking like this is for the better. This is good because I'm helping this person, by
Right.
not bringing up any, they don't really want to hear what I have going on there, obviously, dealing with their own struggles. And but yeah, it got to a point to where it's like, nah, man, it's just not healthy, And I do this to this day, but I love to isolate myself. I love
Yeah.
to isolate myself
Absolutely.
when I'm figuring things out because I get into a mode where I'm like, all right, I got to figure things out, and I no longer have time for any of these interactions. Like where the response should have been like, "Hey, I need to lean into these reactions or interactions more
Mhm.
than isolating myself." But yeah, I get into a zone where I isolate myself and I'm like, "All right, I'm gonna work my hardest to figure out the problem. And that has worked for me multiple times. But when it doesn't work is that's where you have the problem. You know, when you
Yeah.
isolate yourself and then you're trying to figure everything out and you can't figure it out, or things are just not falling in place the way that you need them to, even though you're working your hardest, you're exerting a huge amount of energy or all of your energy into fixing the problem and just not working. That's when you need to either just, even if it's just talking to somebody about the problem and they're not trying to fix the problem, they're just listening,
Mhm.
or if it you need to get somebody involved to help you fix that problem. So I think that was a very interesting point that you said, and that I've just seen in my own life. Um, but did you feel that in terms of your mental health in college, did you feel that there was a lot of you feel that there was a lot of pressure to do very well in college, or what were the pressures that you felt in college, and now that
Mhm.
you've kind of completed college, looking back at those things, yeah, what were you kind of feeling through that those 4 years in terms of like mental health, like where were you at?
Yeah, of course. I always had held myself to a high standard, whether or not I
Mhm.
actually went through with it or not. In high school, I did good, I did well, but I know I could have done better.
Right.
And same
Yeah.
thing, same
Of
thing from
course.
I like literally we could talk about this all day, but I know that there were certain things that I could have been better, so much better at. It's just I didn't
Yeah.
put forth the effort.
Right.
And because of the rigor that I had in high school, transitioning to college and having that standard, it was easy. Of course, I had to put in work, but
Mhm.
you know, fortunately, unfortunately, I was able to have those same habits in high school that I did of just getting by, and it paying off way more in college. Like my
Right.
grade point average in college is, I think, half a like grade point higher than what it was
Okay.
compared to high school, and
Got you.
that's almost with the same type of skills.
Mhm.
So there was obviously a lot of pressure, and I wanted to do well because the fact that I'm an out of state student. I have to find a way to pay back all the money that I have. And yeah,
No kidding.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So dealing with that, dealing with I'm a first generation college student. Like those
I
added
didn't know
pressure
that.
of
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so setting those added pressures of, setting the standard, I have
Mhm.
siblings. Obviously, I want to make my mom proud, make my family proud, my friends proud. But, the biggest
Yeah.
thing for me is just making sure that my siblings have like a path to relatively follow, if not improve.
Right.
So if I'm setting the foundation, then, I want them to, use it to the best of their abilities and then make it better for the future people to come. um
Right.
but with that being said, it does add a lot of pressure. It adds a lot of stress, like I'm doing this for them, but I also got to remember I'm doing it for me, and how's that
Right.
affecting me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just having the perspective of, okay, yes, I have to deal with this, yes, I have to make these grades, I have to pay back this money or whatever, but how am I, enjoying the whole process? How am I
Right.
embracing that grind of, okay, I got to go to school, got to go to class, got to work this job so I can have some little money to survive in college. Like
Mhm.
embracing that and having the people around you, aka your peers, your the college students you're going with, and just talking about different things like that, I think
Mhm.
really helps me alleviate that stress, because some people are going through the exact same thing. Some people have less resources and have to do more in succeeding, and
Right.
to see all those different things and really help my perspective of, yes, I have these pressures, but I'm not alone. And
Yeah.
I can't be alone on a campus with 50,000 people on it, like I
Right. Yeah.
can't be
Yeah.
the only one that's going through all these things that I'm going
Right.
through. And so having that mindset, having that perspective help alleviate some of that pressure on me, and, just
Mm.
enjoy it. But, freshman year, it was like the biggest thing was just trying to find myself, and find, where I fit in with college, because, like you said, with high school, you're coming in with, not knowing these 200 people, and then the other grades, not knowing anybody there. I was coming in the only one from my area, relatively, going to Michigan State. So it's like
Right.
I'm really coming in fresh. I have to not reestablish, but just try and figure out who I am and how I fit into the school. So,
Right.
those pressures and trying to get through that freshman year was very tough, but eventually you just find your way and everything works out if it's meant to work out.
Right. Yeah, man. Like, so many things I can touch on there. I think, bringing up just the first point in terms of, I it's funny because the things that you're talking about figuring out is like I'm figuring out that at this point, and we're very
Mhm.
similar in the fact that we have we're the oldest child, and we have siblings under us that we would like to show the path, um, whether it be success or just through college and how to navigate, and how to express your feelings when you are mentally challenged, in whatever light. But I think that was something that was huge that was weighing on my mind just in terms of my sister and like,
Yeah.
um, I was like, "Yo, I wanna make sure," in terms of my sister and my parents, I
Yeah.
realize that they have given me an opportunity that a lot of people don't have.
Right.
Whether they get into college, that doesn't mean that they can pay for it, and that they are going into debt for me, that other parents wouldn't be able to, or other people just wouldn't be able to handle. And so I understand that they're giving me a great opportunity and to number one, utilize that opportunity to the best of the ability and walk across that stage, for me, but for them, also.
Absolutely.
And then also to do that for my sister, to lead as an example, in terms of, getting your degree and, this is how you move through life. And with dedicating the time, and effort to, get a degree, there are good things that come along with that. And I
Mhm.
think that, that was a challenging thing to kind of, talk about or to get around because some of the paths that I wanted to go in life didn't really, some of the paths didn't involve college, and
No.
that was
Yeah.
I was like, when that happened, when I was my mind was starting to shift there, I'm like, yo, this messes up every piece of the pie here. It's
Yeah.
like it's
Yeah.
not, in just my perspective, it's like, okay, it's not satisfying my parents. Um it's not setting a example for my sister because I don't know if she's gonna want to do things that um don't fall under the college umbrella. And then it's like, what precedent am I setting for her? But then also, you know, uh, church friends and
Yeah.
church friends and family. Like, what are they saying? Oh, I don't wanna hear every time. Oh, you're not in college. You're not gonna amount to
Yeah.
anything. Those kind of things. It's like I'm not really trying to hear that. So, um, that was something that I really struggled with during quarantine, and I think that I have a subject, and we'll have to talk about it here in a little bit. We got some time, but I in quarantine allowed me to kind of focus on what was the real problem when I was at college. I think that I enjoyed college
Mhm.
for the time that I was actually, on campus. I've been in college for a year and a half, but I was really only there for around 6 months where I was on campus. And I had a rough time, a little bit of a rough time adjusting just in terms of rigor with, computer science, because
Yeah.
it's so, you aren't taking less than 15 credits, and I think I've taken 3 semesters of college, and for 2 semesters of those, I was taking 18 credits. And the first semester, I took 15 credits. So, it's like a very, hard workload, um,
Absolutely.
for most of the time that I've been in college. So, it's like I was having a hard time adjusting in terms of socially being able to, actually take advantage of college and campus life, with, maintaining the grades that I wanted with, my 18 credit load, but also having trouble navigating the fact that I wanna go to co the only thing that I would like to go to college for is computer science and,
Mhm.
is technology or something in that field that I can migrate to very easily. It would be easy to change degrees, so
Yeah.
I'm interested in this one thing. Um, but I wasn't interested in it right now. Like that I wasn't I didn't really wanna learn the, the technicalities of it right now. I wanted to focus on, building a brand, doing YouTube. I wanted to I have been studying that for a long time,
Yeah.
as a kid, coming up through high school and seeing these other people do it, and I felt that I had something to offer, as an online personality or career or whatever you wanna call it. Um, and so, during quarantine, I was like, "Yo," um, I was I was weighing the options. I was like, "Okay, college is taking up a lot of my time, and it's not mentally helping me because I feel that, I'm doing something and dedicating my time to something that I don't really wanna explore right now, and
Right.
that's when you're taking a 18 credit load and it's something that you completely do not wanna do, even though that's what the only thing you would wanna go to college for,
Right.
it's
Right.
different stipulations, but, um, it can be mentally taxing, and so,
Mm.
I was like, "Okay, I need to take a semester off." So then I went to my parents. I'm like, "Yo, I gotta take a semester off. This is the right semester. I did it in spring so I can have, the whole semester, but also the summer to kinda
Okay.
figure things out." And, I, yeah, man, I was figuring things out has been difficult. Figuring things out
Oh
has been
yeah.
difficult, but, I ask you a few more questions and we'll kinda get into that breakdown as well because I know I've been talking for a little bit here, but, um yeah, that mental health aspect is huge, and, just making sure that you're opening up to people about the struggles that
Right.
that you're having. That's one of the things that I strive to do on this platform.
Mhm.
I haven't done a lot of the mental health, part because I wanna make sure that um I'm kind of through it a little bit myself, so I can give,
For
not
sure.
great advice, but just kinda show you what I was dealing with and how I fixed it, or not fixed it, but how I'm just, like, actively, working on it,
Working on it. Yeah.
and then show you some of the avenues you can go down for that. But, as you've seen on my channel, I want to or on the podcast channel, I always am talking about the struggles that I've had in YouTube,
Mhm.
specifically, and just helping people through that. Because there's, so many young YouTube content creators, and they're all going through these small, um, what seem like small struggles, but can be really big struggles when you're trying to make this a livelihood. And I
Absolutely.
want to, kind of tell people how my experience was and tell them how I got through that, to give them a little bit of guidance. Obviously, they're not going to do it the same. Nobody's journey is the same, but
Mm.
it gives you at least a little bit of guidance, and if not any guidance, just that somebody else is going through it, and that you're not just seeing the people that are at the top, the Logan Pauls of the world, and being like, how did they navigate
Yeah.
all of this as a small content creator? Um, but I wanna get into a little bit of, we've been talking about jobs and working multiple jobs to pay for school and, while doing a big load in college and performing well. Um, this all falls under the umbrella of hustle culture. And
Mhm.
I have been doing a little bit of research on this topic, and I just wanna know your thoughts in terms of, do you think that hustle culture in the Gen Z era, specifically, is harming, people's mental health, or is harming this generation in general? Or do you think that there are, good aspects of hustle culture, and, like, where do you fall on that spectrum?
Yeah. I it's funny that you bring up hustle culture, because the way I look at it is like I have an old school perspective on it, right? You're hustling to survive. With working with my uncle, he's a referee.
Mhm.
He worked with like different manufacturing companies. He junks. He does many different projects for people. He just does a bunch of little things.
Right.
And he's a hustler.
Yeah.
He was hustling for the extra stuff, right? So
Mhm.
he had his main job and was getting paid well, but then he hustled like if he wants to do a vacation with his family or different things like that.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
So when I equate hustling and try to put it in, today's standards, it's almost night and day, right? Like you almost have to hustle to even get your foot in the door to do anything,
Yeah.
right?
Right,
Like,
right, right, right.
for college, for instance, you have to have good grades. Or to get into college, excuse me, you have to have good grades. You have to have
Mhm.
extracurriculars, volunteer hours. You have to be good with, the test taking. You have to
Right.
have the right
Yeah.
recommendations. Then you
Mhm.
get to college, it's like, okay, you got to bring all that stuff back from high school. So again, grades. You got to find a way to pay for things, live on your own.
Right.
You have to get in close with your professors so they can help you get recommendations for jobs. So
Right.
it's like
Yeah.
that cycle just never stops, right? And
Mhm.
now it's like what you're saying with working for yourself, people are trying to hustle in that way. So whether if it's selling shoes, buying shoes,
Right.
trying to invest, trying to start a YouTube, different things like that, trying to put yourself in these many different places. But it's good to have those many different talents, but then it's also like you sit down, it's like, but what am I doing it for? And is this
Right.
really what I want to keep doing? Is there one thing that I could just focus on? And I think just dealing with that struggle there and trying to decide, look, I can just do this for the rest of my life, or I can do a bunch of things that I want to try to figure out for the rest of my life. And, I
Right.
think that that struggle is tough. And, just trying to decipher what it is. And I also think that culture is affected by the mentality that we have to have everything figured out at a certain age, right? Like
Hmm.
ever since we
Very
were
good point.
young, we were like, man, by the time I'm 25, I need a wife, I need so many kids, I need
Right. Right.
this
Right.
house, I need this job. And I'm 22, I'm like, I am light years away from any of that stuff. And I'm just getting
Yeah.
started.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
see all the things you don't realize all the things it takes to get to there. And
Right.
how many different factors that have to play in too. Like
Right.
it's funny you want to grow up so fast, but you don't realize the cost growing up that
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah.
So I think with hustling, you're in that mindset of, oh, I got to get it now. I got to get it. I got to keep going. I got to keep pushing. Got to keep pushing.
Mhm.
But it's okay to take your time.
Right.
Everybody's path is so different. We Nobody starts at the exact same race at all because of the
Right.
resources, because of the experience that people have, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think it's kind of like you said, dangerous to be in that culture because it just creates a mindset of you just never meeting your expectations and doing the things that you thought you're supposed to do at a certain time.
Yeah. I think that's a very interesting point that you bring up there in terms of having everything figured out by a certain age. I think that this is something that I talked about in the last podcast. For those of you that did listen to that podcast, which was titled "That the Internet Isn't Reality," and that we're always consuming content, and that I use the word consuming that phrase very broadly. That consuming content is looking at pictures, videos, media, any kind of media online. We're always consuming that content from the top 1% of the 1%. And that can be very dangerous, when you're only consuming content from the 1% of the 1%, try to, model your life after that. And it
Mhm.
just isn't feasible for what you're trying to do. And it can often be not even what you're trying to achieve. You think that you need that. You think you need the excess and the Gucci bags and the Lambo and everything, but that's not really what would give you that happiness. And I've also talked about on another podcast how I understand the grind because I won't ever know that money doesn't buy happiness until I actually achieve that. Like, you'll never fully know.
Exactly.
You can
Yeah.
definitely understand, and I think that my comprehension of that statement, that age-old statement um has definitely grown as I've grown older. But you'll
Mhm.
never actually truly know that statement to the full extent until you're there. And people are like, "All right, well, let me get there." And then we can figure it out because money
Right.
is the number one. Um
Yeah.
and yeah, I think like you said, it can be very taxing. And it can prohibit you from actually doing the things that you want to do in life, but um also just taxing yourself mentally when you don't need to be.
Exactly.
You're just I am a person that likes to think light years ahead of where I am. I have a
Right.
problem with staying in, in the now and
Yeah.
living in the now. Um, and when you're thinking like, man, I gotta be, have all of this, I gotta have $1 million by 25. And you're
Right.
thinking about how to create that, you know, all of that stress of that entire 5 years is now on you. Like, you're
Right.
actively thinking about that, all the stress that you're gonna endure for the next 5 years, and that you're just mentally thinking about. That was the other point that you made that I wanted to go back to in terms of your power to think,
Mhm.
when you're a person that isolates yourself, um and you
Yeah.
just start thinking about every possibility or how you're going to get to that certain, thing that you view as success or you view as the point that you want to be at whatever age and whatever time. Um, it can just be, it can be, what's the word I'm looking for? It can just be taxing, but I'm not even sure. It can just deplete you of all your energy, man.
Oh,
It
yeah.
can just it
Exhausting.
can be,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. It could just be mentally exhausting,
Yeah.
and physically exhausting and make you basically want to not do anything. You're just
Yeah.
you're in a
Absolutely.
state of inaction. And I, being honest, I think I was in that period just in the last couple of days. I know I said I had
Mhm.
been lazy this week, but
Yeah.
I was made some changes into what I was gonna do in the next couple of months, and I that change meant that the plan that I had been thinking about for a while wasn't gonna be the plan that I was going with now. And because
Mhm.
a person that likes to think of, so far in the future, because I didn't see the future, I saw where I wanted to be, but I didn't
Yeah.
have the plan to get there. It was
Yeah.
just messing me up. And I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I just had to take a few days off work. And I was just like, man, and it's not that I was like, oh, I had to take a few days off work and I was sitting at the computer planning and no, man. I woke up and I got on my phone and I was on TikTok for 3
Yeah.
hours, like, and I was
Yeah.
just like, I was just chilling, like, and it it was able to relax me enough to be in the right mental state to be like, "All right, I can sit down and I can plan where I want to be." Um, because, even yeah, I was able to just sit down, plan out what I wanna do, say that, "Hey, obviously, there are things that I want, that I have to work really hard for. But
Mhm.
what that you can't get to a certain place mentally to where these things can't be possible. So you have to work in those things that um are going to be rewarding to you that have no stress. My one of my big things was, the fight that's coming up. The Logan Paul Mayweather. I'm like, yo, that day, nothing else, I'm gonna go to church at the beginning, but after that, man, I'm gonna, find a place with some friends. We're just gonna watch the fight, and that's gonna be a great
Yeah.
night. And looking forward to that. That's in a couple of weeks. And then finding other things, week by week, but then also um day by day, scheduling 30 minutes to an hour to do what you really wanted to do. And
Mhm.
that for me was playing video games off stream. I consistently tell my stream that I don't progress in these games because I never play video games off stream, and that had just been something that I kinda lost when I got into YouTube
Right.
full time. And doing I was playing video games before, me and Kyle got on last night on stream, but, yeah, I was just playing by myself, and I was like, "Man, this is great. I need to schedule an
No
hour,
pressure,
30
no
minutes to
nothing.
an hour, to
Yeah.
do this every 2 or 3 days," like, I gotta make sure I'm doing that, but, yeah, I wanna circle back around to this, and, I was talking about quarantine and,
Mhm.
some life changes. There was something that somebody said actually in a video that I was watching about hustle culture. And she was saying that during quarantine, the demons of life, for lack of a better word, were able to really rear their heads in quarantine because you weren't distracting yourself with the nuances of everyday life. You now were
Mhm.
just alone with your thoughts, and just more sedentary with yourself and in your thoughts, with being in front of a computer screen and not having any interaction.
Yeah.
And so my question to you, um, which is really open ended. Did you feel that you had an experience with that during quarantine? Um, and Yeah, do you feel that there's some truth to that statement, or is there anything that have learned that like that's definitely a true statement? I just wanted to hear what you had to say on that.
Yeah, quarantine was an interesting time in itself. So March 15th, I think it was, my mom had said, I'm just coming up there. I'm taking you from Michigan State because, I don't know what's going to happen.
Right, right,
And
yeah.
at the time, I was like, Mom, I'm 21. I can figure it out. I'll come home when it's time for me to come home, when I'm ready to come home.
Right.
And,
Mhm.
looking back, she was doing it for safety, of course. But
Mhm.
with that, going into that, when I was at home, I hated it. Like, it was like, I wasn't ready to be here. I wasn't ready to deal with all that I was dealing with. Like, I still am
Mhm.
trying to figure out school. Now I'm going to school at home and
Yeah.
dealing with all that, waking up a whole hour earlier because I'm back in central time zone. So
Yeah.
all that, it weighed on me. And then it was also like, dude, you're 21. So like, are you gonna work? Are you gonna collect unemployment? Are you
Right.
what are you gonna do during this time? And I can imagine how scary that'd be. People picked up so many hobbies during quarantine. They played
Yeah.
so many different things because they felt that they had the need to. It's like, I have all this time, let me do something with it. And with me
Right.
personally, I was like, what do I want to do? What are some things that like I want to do? And I there wasn't anything I really picked up.
Mhm.
Around that time our church was still being built and in the process of different things like that. So I
Right.
I put myself in that. My uncle loved it because I wasn't working. He could
Right,
pick me
right.
up to do junking stuff, so it was
Yeah.
good on that front. And then I took the time to myself to figure out what I wanted to do.
Mhm.
And with that, I was okay with that. I was okay with not finding that one thing or like working out more or doing anything to better myself. Like I was okay with just living life because this was the first time in a long time where I could just be in the house and not have to really have any huge worries that I have to attend to. Um,
Yeah.
but with that, it's dangerous because you get stuck in a rut. And it's like, okay, how do you get out of it at this point? How do you transition back to, okay, now I got to get back with the hustle and bustle and all that stuff.
Right.
So just like you said, just finding little things, like little victories. In doing anything, you should never, never, never focus on, yes, I finally accomplished this huge thing. Yeah, yeah, those are great, but they're so far and drawn out.
Yeah.
If you can celebrate every little thing you do, your mental state is just
Man.
going to be nothing but positive. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
for some people, it's as simple as I brushed my teeth today.
Yeah.
I took a shower today. It could be that. Or it could be, oh, I cleaned my room like and it looks nice, or I redid my room, or I cooked this meal, or I did the dish. Like those little things matter so much. And in terms of
Mhm.
just accomplishing, especially during quarantine, because you're stuck in the house, or you were stuck in the house anyway. So just finding those little things to celebrate, I think helped me get through that. And just trying to prepare for life. I was cut short of my junior year. You were cut short of your freshman year.
Mhm.
And where we were in that position of going into quarantine is so vastly different. You're looking at, man, I
Right.
was robbed of like my initial college experience. And I was
Right,
like,
right.
man, I was robbed of trying to set up opportunities for
Yeah.
the end of my college experience. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
just being careful with the thoughts that I had during quarantine and realizing, look, I don't have to push myself just because other people are pushing yourself to do these things because that's their
Yeah.
way of handling it. I need to find my own thing to handle being in this sense of isolation, being by yourself, not being able to go to many different places. And yeah, just sorting through that. And again, just talking to people through it. I'll always reiterate, we are not meant to go through this life alone. You
Right.
are meant to interact with humans. It's in our nature to have that interaction.
Mhm.
And in a time where quarantine is where if you live alone, you're kind of going to tend to be alone. It can be very scary being in your own thoughts, and
Right.
having those irrational thoughts be on your mind all day and not having an outlet to go to get rid of them. So
Right.
yeah, quarantine was, it's been a tough time for everybody. It's nice that, we're a year, man, a year out, and things are kind of still on the up a little bit.
Right.
It's always hard because the next day, the CDC is saying out there, they're saying now about, oh, you can do this and
Yeah,
you
yeah,
can do
yeah.
this here, but then it's like, right as it spikes back up, you're going to be put in that position of potentially quarantine again, and then
Right.
all the drama that comes with that. So
Yeah.
it's nice to be open and do a little bit more, but again, I'm always still fearful because, like, we're still not even, I don't even think we're halfway there with this whole situation yet. So
Yeah. It's very interesting that you mentioned the point in terms of celebrating the little victories. I've had a conversation with you about um even how I wasn't celebrating
mm,
the graduation of high school. Like,
yeah.
my tolerance, or it's that's not necessarily the right word, but my idea of a success or something to congratulate myself over or to celebrate was so big that there was just years upon years gaps of these things. And if you put that into perspective, that's like not feeling happy for years. Like,
Exactly.
it's
Yeah, that's
literally
true.
not feeling happy for years. It's like, okay, I'm grinding. I understand this is what I gotta do to get to
Right.
the thing that's really gonna make me happy, but if you're not celebrating those small victories, then it really cost you your happiness, and I think that was a
Absolutely.
big thing of why I wasn't, super happy in high school because I was like, "Alright, I gotta get through high school," but I'm looking at college, so I'm looking 6 years in advance, if I'm just in the middle of my high school career, um, into being like, "Alright, well, that's when I can finally live my life," that's when I
Mhm.
can finally do things on my own, or I don't have to people please anymore. Um,
Yeah.
and Yeah, I think that's a big part, and that was my biggest advice that I gave to people that were in our church that were going into high school, but there's other people that I knew that were going, or not high school, college, that were
Mhm.
going into college, and it was like, yo, number one, celebrate the fact that you are about to graduate or just graduated high school, and enjoy that summer. I know there's going to be things, obviously, that you have to deal with in terms of getting on campus and all those things, but you've gotten into the school. There's no more no more applications and all that,
Yeah.
garbage that you have to deal with. Celebrate that fact and really enjoy this summer because, um, it's gonna be one of the last summers that you have that you don't have
Yeah.
to worry about anything. And there was another point that you brought up in terms of, you know, how we don't realize how much it costs to grow up. And I was just telling somebody the other day, or I think people in my stream, they were like, "Oh yeah, summer's coming up. We'll be able to do, basically inferring on me that I'll be able to do this, and I'll be able to have more events." And I'm like, yeah, that's not how it works at 20, 21. It's like, yeah, I know
Yeah.
they're 13, 14. It's like, man, what would I give to have one of those summers again? Where it's just when
Man,
I got out of school, the world stopped. I just It was just ice cream and sunshine. That's what it was for 3 months.
what?
And it
Straight
felt
up.
like a whole year. It felt like a whole year. Even though we
Yeah.
always said summer was too short, it still felt very long. Those
Mhm.
90 days was great. And it felt like you kind of went through a whole like revolution. I don't know, during those summers and going into the
Yeah.
next grade. Um, but yeah, celebrating the small victories. Couldn't have said it better myself. Um, but I want to talk about this topic because I feel that it's something that it needs to be addressed.
Okay.
But I'm not sure how people are gonna feel about it. But I've talked about cancel culture a little bit in my past podcasts, and
Yeah.
people kind of know my views on that, and I will continue to elaborate every time a situation comes up with that. Um, but this is kind of a different cancel culture in the
Okay.
fact that people are trying to, and it's been happening for a little bit now, but it's relatively new that people are trying to cancel other people for not putting in the effort that they feel is, suitable for matters at hand. So,
Mm, okay.
for example, let's take it back to something that happened during the quarantine. If I, as a black person, am not
Yep.
putting up Black Lives Matter,
Yeah.
all of these stats about all of this shootings and all this stuff that I'm not, for the cause of black people. Or if
Right.
somebody that's not black is not putting up those things on their social media, that they're not they are racist or that,
Right.
they don't
Yeah.
support black people. And that goes for all of the things, even some of the things that are happening in today's world. Um and the the title of this topic is a little abrasive, but I'm gonna explain it a little bit. And it's you can't care about everything. And now, I that doesn't mean, that's why I say it's a
Right.
little bit abrasive, but
Yeah.
when, I see 2 aspects to it. Well, 3.
Okay. Okay.
One is social media does not determine if somebody cares about something or not. It doesn't.
Absolutely.
Not at
It
all.
doesn't.
So that's something
Yeah.
that we have to get out of the way at the beginning.
Yeah.
Maybe there's 4 aspects, man, I'm gonna forget them by the time I get through. Number 2, sometimes you have to educate yourself on what's actually happening to have an
Mhm.
opinion or to even post anything about it.
Mhm.
If we want to just say that social media is the only thing that says we care about stuff, I have to be educated about what is happening in order to post things that I agree with, and in order to spread the word of whatever it is that I'm trying to spread, right? Um, and so I think you gotta allow people to educate themselves
Mhm.
on those things. And I think that is for the better because if they're just posting something out of, fear that somebody's gonna think they're racist or somebody's gonna think they're whatever, I'm just using racist in this term for that,
Yeah.
explanation for that example. They are not actually gonna learn what's going on. And
No.
then they just posted a bunch of stuff and that didn't really help anything, you know.
Right.
It didn't help their own understanding so that they can use it later on in life when something similar comes up. And but then I think the third leg of this thing is the people that are on social media that you feel have a bigger audience, than most,
Mhm.
like those
Mhm.
of celebrities. But there's a lot in our generation. It's not really even celebrities. It's just people that have a large following. They have 200,000 followers. They have,
Social media
even 50K.
influencers. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, whatever you wanna call those term of people. You could
Right.
call them celebrities, whatever it is, content
Yeah.
creators, influencers, whatever it is. Um, you cannot put your burden of care on that person.
Right.
That just can't happen.
No.
There are gonna be things that, number 1, they're not educated on, but they just aren't the right person to talk about those issues. If there's
Yeah.
somebody that does makeup and hair, why would they be posting about these certain things,
Exactly.
and that
Yeah.
doesn't not 1 second doesn't mean that they don't care about it or that they don't know about it or that they're not educating themselves.
Yeah.
But it just means that they realize in their place, it's actually them being, mindful as a human and saying that I am not educated or it is not my place to speak about these certain things.
No.
And I don't have to share what's going through my head right now. I'm gonna do what I do in my regular life, whether that is to educate myself or to, keep tabs on the scenario that's happening and just deal with it in that light instead of posting to and blasting to social media as like a spokesperson,
Yeah.
because you're black or because you're this race or because, you identify with this community or that community. Um so, the question and all that, for you is, have you seen this before? Have you seen this happening, in just even in the recent 2 years? And then, yeah, what are your thoughts on the matter? Do you have anything to add to the topic?
Yeah. It's interesting, especially being, black and having everything going on. And some people ask you, "Oh, what's your opinion on this and what's your opinion on that?" And then I'm
Mhm.
like, I don't know much about what's going on. Whether if it's
Right.
I choose to be ignorant to the matter or see social media, see what they're saying, and then picking and choosing what is okay to delve into, what is not okay. You
Yeah.
know, it's and like you said, you can't care about everything. You know why? Because some people just live it. And so I'm not
Yeah.
gonna spend the energy to say, yeah, Black Lives Matter and we need to do this and that. No, some people are going through it and don't have the time to deal
Yeah.
with all that,
Yeah.
or been dealing with it their entire life and not gonna think, yeah, the social media post is gonna reassure,
Right.
hey, I'm dealing with it. Um, so it's tough. I did have a friend who felt the need to reach out, and I'm like, hey, whatever gets your conscience like clear of like anything,
Right, right,
by all
right.
means, for sure.
Yeah.
But I whether you say, yeah, I hear you, or I see what's going on, and I'm sorry, that's great and all, but it's not going to really do anything. It's
Yeah.
beyond my control, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah, yeah,
saying
yeah.
sorry is doesn't mean, oh, I gotta stand up, I gotta spark, I gotta do whatever. And
Right.
if people feel the need, I'm going to support them. I'm going to
Yeah.
support. If you feel the need to do that, great, but you also need to support the fact that I'm just going to do me, whatever that means, whether that
Right.
means I'm saying anything, not saying anything, whatever the case is. And like you said, just taking the time to inform yourself on what's going on, and
Mhm.
instead of just people always say be sheep and follow the crowd and all that stuff with what's going on, like, and just join anybody. I mean, it's not for everybody.
Mm.
You said about the person who's doing makeup and staying in the lane. Absolutely.
Yeah.
If I'm not in the position to have an opinion about this specific topic, there is no reason why I should be talking about it at all. There is people in place who want to do that, who should do that if they feel the need. And like you said, you can't care about everything, because you do that, then you stop caring about your own life. You stop
Right.
caring about the things that matter to you, because the crowd is all caring about this and all worried about this. And it's like, yes, they're important matters, but there are things in life that I still matter, and life still goes on after these points as well.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
this stuff is not going to stop. Let's be real, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't
Yeah,
mean
yeah.
to dismiss it, but it's just a matter of knowing where you fit in regarding everything that's going on. And it's, I remember all the black squares, all the different artwork of, Black Lives Matter and all that stuff. And, yeah, it's great in theory to have all these celebrities say all this stuff or whatever.
Right.
But with the regular folk, like, it's okay just to live your life regarding what's
Right.
going on.
Yeah.
And, you know, not to say be ignorant or not worry, but
Mhm.
be informed as much as you want to be informed, and go into it as much as you want to go into it. But knowing for yourself why you're doing it, not
Right.
just doing it just because other people are watching. That's kind of how I feel about the matter.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's huge, man. I think when that stuff was going on, it was um there was such a feeling of hopelessness within me
Mm,
because I was like, this might be the biggest, spike that we've ever seen within, Black
sure.
Lives Matter, but I still was like, nothing is gonna change. Like that, nothing is
Yeah,
gonna change institutionally, with people because for whatever matter. I'll just leave it at that. For whatever matter, but
yeah.
um, for me, it was like, yo, I don't even want to see, what's happening. Like, I want to
No, I
watch the
don't.
video. I heard, I'm cool, man. Like,
Yeah, and
I
that's
just don't
okay.
want to, yeah, and I think that there weren't people that were bold enough to like to message me saying like you aren't doing this. But even within my own friend group,
Mhm.
like, oh, why don't you, post about this or you see this that happened? And I'm
Yeah,
like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I understand, man, but it's like I'm just, I obviously the friends that I'm talking to are also black, and it's like, yo, we're living this, man. We're living this. I have to deal with that, on social media everywhere I go. When I'm one of the primary things I'm trying to do is social media, so I already have to live with it there. Um,
yeah,
so it's just like I'm not trying to surround my life, with all that, and I will do whatever is possible to help in the way that I see fit. But,
yeah,
I can't just bog myself down with knowing every single detail about all that. But I think we're seeing that, happen with uh, other um things in the world, considering the war and the, situation that's going on in the East and that I don't really know much about. And multiple people are posting and about it, and then even some people that I know, and I'm like that I know personally, and they're like, yeah, I have no idea what's going on. I just posted it, like, and I'm like, yeah, how does that? I can't compute. It's like I'm
Worse.
not
That's
gonna
like a
compute.
thousand times worse.
I'm not gonna post anything I don't actually know what's going on.
Yeah.
And but I'm totally open to hearing anybody. There are people that I know that
Absolutely. Yeah.
are very connected to that. And I'm totally open to hearing what's happening and how this is, affecting them and what's actually going on and what can be done to actually help the situation instead of just spreading, just non things that don't make a difference, that just kind of,
Right.
are
Just
just putting
fluff.
it out
Just
there, but aren't.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, is it really the information that needs to be out there? Is it really
Yeah.
the information that's helping change something and illuminating the actual problem? So yeah, it's yeah. That's we could get even deeper in that, but I think it's
Mhm.
this is an interesting thing, man. This whole cancel culture, going back to the cancel culture part of that,
Yeah.
it's kind of it's just getting out of control, and I think we'll reach a point to where it'll be so crazy, and maybe not, but I hopefully we'll reach a point to where it's so crazy that the mass majority of the society it's just like, "This can't happen." Like, this
Yeah.
we just have to give people are people, we have to give them chances, and if that person is inherently whatever it is, and
Yeah.
they are just adamant about their position, and obviously it's against, all of society, then, obviously,
Right.
then we have to deal with that matter, but that isn't most people, that's not 99% of the people, they're just either not educated or, they just don't know what's going on,
Mhm.
or weren't aware, of what they were doing or were aware and now have educated themselves and are doing something different.
Speaking
So
on that,
yeah.
um, I wanted to hear your thoughts on, the people who are getting a rise out of just trying to cancel anybody for anything,
Mm,
right? So like they're
mhm.
in culture, but they're actively trying to find people to cancel to get that fulfillment. Like, what are your thoughts on people like that in that whole situation?
I think that my first response to that, and it's not necessarily a very thought out response, but my first response whenever I see that is I don't understand, and this just comes from my way of thinking. I don't understand how you have the time. There are people that go so in depth with canceling somebody. We'll find a clip from the 2014 stream. This guy streams every day, but they found a clip from 2014 in a 7-hour stream of a 5 seconds clip of this guy saying this or whatever he did. And it's like, oh, you're obviously in 2021, you're obviously still this person in 2014, and you
Yeah.
obviously still fully agree with what you said. You know,
Right.
um,
Yeah.
you know, uh, I I just my first response was, "How do you have the time?" Because in my life, it's like I wouldn't ever have the time. Like I don't have. I think I said in one podcast, it's like I barely comment on things, but if I ever comment or a post, I'm like, I just like it and I say something positive. Or I think on YouTube my philosophy is I just either like it or I don't not like it and I don't dislike. So
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
just like, I'm not gonna harm your content or whatever. Um
Absolutely.
but uh, yeah, my thing was that I don't even have the time to comment something bad on somebody's, YouTube post. So how am I gonna have the time to look into, the last 7 years of your life and figure out
Yeah.
something that you did? Um, and I think there's a fine line to it because
Yeah.
some of it is stuff that does need to be public knowledge, but
Mhm.
those situations are few and far between now because
Yeah.
now we're just getting to the nuances of things that aren't really, oh, you can't be hired because of a tweet you said for, 8, 7, 8 years ago. It's
Yeah.
like that's not the person you're hiring. Do they do would you address that with that person privately? Maybe that's something you need to have a conversation about, and to make
Mhm.
sure that they're not still in that light. Totally fine, but it's in about the way you do it. It doesn't need to be blasted online. It doesn't need to be,
Yes.
commented on by the mass society. It can be
Yeah.
dealt with between that one, whichever parties are involved, you know? Um, and so that's my, my second response. But then the overarching thing that I feel is that um, it has become a method in which to gain attention and traction
Mhm.
online. And
Mhm.
nobody, I was watching a podcast where with Joe Rogan and Dave Chappelle, and Dave
Okay.
Chappelle was saying that you can never be woken up, and I don't, I can't
Yeah.
agree with that
Wow.
more, but, you see it in influencers now that are trying to be, everything, every topic, they're talking about it passionately, or, I stand for this, I stand for that, I do it goes back to what we just talked about. You can't care about everything. And if you know that
You're
humans
right.
can't care about everything. It's like you can't expect every single person to be perfect in every single manner. It just can't happen. And then it kind of, I feel, being a content creator, I feel it suppresses um the creativity of that creator. It
Absolutely.
doesn't allow for the creation that they wanted to put out into the world and that a certain amount or community enjoys. If you don't enjoy it, just like a comic, you don't have to listen to that, specific content, you know?
Mhm.
And that is with things that are a little bit lighter. Obviously, like we already said, there's degrees to this. Um, but yeah, I'm upset with the fact that it's become a means to in which to gain attention online, and I don't like that some people are kind of like prospering off the fact of canceling other people and making a
Yeah.
career out of it. Because when it's them, when we've actually seen them get exposed for whatever it is, people do the
Right.
same thing for them, then it's, oh, what was me, you know, and it's like,
Right.
nah, man, you can't
Yeah.
ever that was always a big thing with me in high school is like, yo, if you flaming me, I gotta be able to come at you just as hard. You can't be,
Right.
oh nah, it's like, nah, man. It's gotta be the same. Um, so yeah, I think that's my overall thoughts. Like those are the three stages that I was in, when I started to realize that that was something that was like rising in our society.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But, yeah, so I got one last topic for you. I think we've been going for an hour and 20 minutes, but I honestly do not
It
care.
didn't even
This can
feel
be,
like it.
yeah, this can be a longer podcast, man. I think some people might enjoy it. Um,
I'm
but I
down.
have this last topic, and it's a little bit out of the ways of what we've been talking about, but I
Okay.
think I might have talked. I've either talked with you personally a little bit about this, or I've talked a little bit on the podcast about it. Um, but the fact that money and financial literacy is so taboo in our society.
Yeah.
Um, and so a little bit, well, I really want to get your thoughts around financial literacy, especially, through college, learning about money, how to manage
Yeah.
it. Obviously you're
Yeah.
paying off, loans and things of that sort. And learning how to pay for where you live or whatever, food, whatever it is. Um,
Yeah.
but also that, yeah, I'll get into my thoughts, but I'll let you kind of just talk about the matter, see what you think.
Yeah, for sure. I will be the first to admit I'm very financially illiterate. There are so many things that I really don't know, but it's also hard to gauge what level of financial literacy I am because there's not really a standard. I
Right.
remember you were
Yep.
talking on one of your earlier podcasts saying like you don't learn that in school. Like there isn't a legit class
Right.
for like a year where you're learning about financial literacy and all that stuff.
Hmm.
So ever since I was young, I've always been like never like trying to spend my money, like I've always like
Hmm.
tried to save my money, tried to hold on to it for as long as I can because going back to not wanting to burden mom or ask mom for
Yep.
anything, like
Yep.
you want to hold on to your money and spend it. And as I
Hmm.
got older, it's just just learning how to budget, learning how to, okay, I know this check is coming up and I want to spend stuff for this, so how am I going to balance that? That's kind of the biggest thing is budgeting. That's what I, really learned throughout, towards the end of high school, definitely in college, and especially now. Just
Yeah.
knowing where you want to put your money towards, how you want to save it, different things like that. And I think I'm relatively, aware of how to do that and where to put my money and how to say, okay, this accounts for this specific thing, and this accounts just for saving. This accounts for all of their expenses like that.
Yeah.
So that, and then just using and knowing what the purpose of a credit card is for.
Right.
I got a credit card. I want to say, has it been about a year almost? I think December of 2019.
Okay.
So it'll be coming up in 2 years, so like about a year and a half.
Mhm.
And whenever I use my credit card, the only time that I'm using it is when I know absolutely I can pay it back fully. So for
Yeah.
instance,
Yeah. Yeah.
when the credit card bill comes, I pay it all the way through. I don't pay the
Right.
minimum amount
Yep.
because I know I have all this money, and I just
Mhm.
using the credit card to build up my credit score.
Yep.
So just
Exactly.
having that um, you know, awareness to be like, hey, I'm not overspending or spending something that I know I can't pay back or I won't get
Mhm.
like literally the next day. If I'm using this credit card, I'm using it for the sole purpose of just building up my credit score, right?
Right.
Because
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not gaining anything for just having the money can't come right out of my bank account. So
Yeah.
if I have what's in place to help me do other things with this credit score, I might as well just use that and spend from my bank account with other things, but for bigger things use the credit card because I know I already have it. So that's about all I have. I had posted after my first day of work like a picture on Instagram saying time to start a Roth IRA or a
Yeah.
401k
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
retirement plan. um and it's funny because when you get set up with the job that I have and all the benefits, it's like
Mhm.
retirement is one of the things, but it's like I have to read into that. Like I really
Yeah.
have to sit down and
Oh
take the
yeah.
time to look at what this coverage means and what these benefits means for health insurance, life insurance, and different things like that. So like I'm glad that I'm in the position where like I have many people to go to talk about it who have worked and
Mhm.
know what that is. But like it's literally a totally different language that I will have to understand for the future because my kids, my siblings will have to know how to do it too, and I have to be able to help in some way, or I
Right.
want to be able to help in some way.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so I still have a lot to learn. Again, it's taking the time and setting aside the time to actually look at stuff and do stuff and make decisions based on that knowledge that you're gaining.
Yeah, I think that was something that was huge for me was that I think that a lot of people that I was surrounding myself were at the same, financial literacy point as me. But the people that were, in my private school that had, you know, were very affluent, they had a lot of things that financial things that were set aside for them that were
Right.
working in the background. And
Yeah.
I, when I kind of saw that, I was like, man, 16-year-old kids telling me, "Oh yeah, my dad invested 10,000, in this stock for me and that's just going to be, or in a, in the index fund and that's going to be, blah 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 XYZ in the future and all those kind
Yeah.
of things." That's what really sparked my interest and I'm like, "Yo, this is how I have to learn how to actually create that genera that generational wealth that I want to create for my
Yeah.
family. And
Absolutely.
that doesn't come with just getting a job and then, oh, saving the money. That's not how these people
Oh
are
yeah.
getting millions of dollars. It's just
No,
not,
it's not.
you know. And it goes into the passive income side of things. But touching on some of the points you made, in terms of a credit card, I think I got a credit card about a year ago as well, probably the same around the same time you did. But I was kicking myself because my mom wanted to do it a different way, and I had done the research, and I was like, "Yo, I need to do it this way. I need to do it this
Yeah.
way." But I just went ahead and applied for it myself. But getting a secured card in the aspect of I'm putting, $500 up to the credit card company, and that's how much the credit card can spend. So
Mhm.
they have the 500 in insurance if I don't, I'm not able to pay off the debt, but um, it allows you to get approved for a card, pretty much
Oh,
right
much
away because
easier. Gotcha.
you're giving them the insurance money, so they don't care.
Yeah.
The card's not gonna let you spend over 500. If you don't pay it back, they already have 500 to bank from you. So,
Gotcha.
um, they're not worried about it. I did that for the reason of building my credit, and I would obviously always pay off, the credit card in full. Every time I spent on it, I would pay it off in full, but, also having a good utilization rate on the credit card in terms
Hmm.
of having that 10 to 20%, utilization of that $500 or whatever capital you've given, um,
Yeah.
to make sure that your credit score is actually increasing, because if you have too little, it's going down. If you have too much, it's going down. And
Yeah. And that's
that
so
learning curve
annoying.
was so
Yeah.
crazy, but yeah, but now I received my basically my security deposit back from the company, and so I was like, "Oh, that's great." I wasn't even expecting that $500, but,
Yeah.
then they raised the limit to like $1,500 or whatever, and I don't really care
Man.
whatever the limit is.
Yeah.
I was just like, okay, that means now I have to put a few more expenses on this card to keep the utilization rate at 10 to 20%. And so now I
Yeah.
just use it for like food, and that's it because I don't really spend more than $100 to $200 in a month on food.
Mm.
And that gets me, the utilization rate. I'm paying it off in full every month. And that's just my credit score is just, gaining points because of that practice. And so that was a huge thing that in terms of financial literacy that I was able to gain. Like I said, I should have had it like 3 years ago, but
Right. Right.
I
At the
digress.
start of
Um,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I did that, and then in terms of man, I saw all these white kids just invested in stocks, man. I was like, "Yo, how is this happening? Like, how are you just like y'all already said y'all don't even need to go to college. Y'all got
Right.
invested in all these little things, man." So I'm like,
Yeah.
"Man, I need to
The
learn how to do that."
resources.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, as we've already talked about, different people start with different resources, and
Yeah.
so I was like, "Yo, I need to find, I need to figure it out and actually start investing, and with the little that I have to just to learn, not to actually gain. Obviously, I want to gain
Right.
money, but just to
Me too.
learn, like, okay, well, I can put this little amount in. I don't really care if it goes to zero, so but then investing in, learning what an index fund is, learning how these are different stocks that aren't going to go to zero. You're not gambling.
Yeah.
You're actually investing in your future in terms of starting your Roth IRA and contributing $600 a month, to that to make sure that you're getting the maximum, um, interest over 20 to 30 years. And
Yeah.
so I think that's all great things, but I think that it can benefit in two ways for younger students or just younger people in general. I think that
Mhm.
number one, there needs to be, education around it in
Absolutely.
the education system. There just needs to be a
Way
class on
more.
how do you pay
Yeah.
your taxes, how do you get a credit card, why does your credit score why does your credit score matter, and things like that. But then also
Yeah.
too, I feel like parents as well. I think that
Yeah.
my like you said, in terms of not wanting to burden, mom or dad, I saved all the money I had. Even when they gave me, I think I started going to these like Cedar Point trips every 2 years for my school or whatever. And they would give me like a whole bunch of money just to make sure that I was good, I could pay for everything. But I would be like, yo, I'm spending $20 on lunch and everything, like everything else, I'm saving. Like I'm not
Yeah.
spending anything. I was that kid. And
Right.
so and even when we're talking to personally, how I'm like, yo, I don't spend on anything if it's not for business or is
Right.
not for things that I got to pay off bills and other things like that. And that's just because of the things that I want. I see that I want bigger things. I'm not looking at just spending $200 there, 200, $400 there because I know
Yeah.
that can be a trap. And then also the the credit card debt. To me, because I started educating myself, because of the situation I was put in, that was an advantage, even though I didn't have the advantage of, having my parents invest, money for me.
Yeah.
I was still in in an area where that was like being said, it was being spoken about. And so then I could have the inkling to actually go research about it. But having that man, I lost my train of thought, like, completely. Um,
Having that
but
knowledge, having that
we were talking about parents. Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
those
So
resources.
the parents, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
having the resource, it was a great thing for me. But what I was trying to pull it back to is if my parents had been a little bit more open about what they did financially, in
Oh
terms of
yeah,
how
yeah,
they grew up, I think that would be very beneficial for kids. My parents were took the approach of we got it all figured out. Don't worry about it. And
yeah.
that's a good approach, for a certain age. But when I'm
Mhm.
actually trying to learn about, my own, how to deal with money on my own, I think it's cool
Yeah,
to kind of just be a little bit more open about the process and show how this is how you build your credit score. This is how this is how mom and dad save for your college fund. This is how, this is how we worked for or planned for two kids in 20 years. This is it.
yeah.
These are the things that we went through.
Well,
And that can help, your kid be even more financially literate and stable for their kids in the future. So I think that's something that I would I'd recommend for parents. I don't think there's any parents watching, but
you never know.
yeah,
Hey,
you
you
never
never
know, you
know.
never know. When this thing blows up in a year or so, they'll all watch the
It
old
will.
episodes and they'll
It
see it. But
will. It will.
um, yeah, that's interesting, man. But we've been going here for like an hour and 35 minutes, so I don't want to tax the people. But I'm actually digging these long episodes, man. Let me know if you like these hour 30-minute episodes down below in the comments. But as you already know, whenever I have a guest on at the end of my show, I do Cam's cheat codes, and when I have a guest on, I let them do the cheat code for the week. So my question to you, Anthony, is going to be: there's any advice, there's any tips that you could give to the people that are listening, in terms of college, what your journey through college, the things that you've learned, in terms of mental health, the things that you've learned in your profession, but also just by yourself, and figuring out your own mental health, or just anything in general that you'd like to share, that you feel could benefit people that are watching, um, let us know.
Yeah. It's funny because when I would listen to you bring in other people, I was like, man, if you ever brought me in, what would I ever say? What there's so much things that you could talk about.
Right, right,
And
right.
I was honestly thinking about it the other day when I was cutting the grass. I was like, you have to be careful of the standards you have for yourself and what they mean for other people, right? So, you
Mm,
know, me and myself, I have high standards for myself. And in turn, naturally, I expect people to meet those same high standards, right? And then I get
yeah,
disappointed when they're not met by those people
yeah,
because that's not the standards they set for themselves. That's the standard I'm setting for them. And then it goes both ways too. So the standards you're setting for yourself, what are you basing them on? Are you
mm,
basing them on the people who are actually successful, who have shown you how they're successful? Or are you basing it on people who were given success? Are you basing it on all these celebrities? What is your standard measure of success, and how are you measuring yourself to that? And it's very scary and very detrimental thinking to you know try to set these high standards based on the people that you see in social media or what have you, and not
right,
meeting them. You're like, man, am I doing anything? Am I not meeting my own standards and failing? And so it's be careful of those standards. Obviously, have them, and those expectations you have of yourself, and then turning to having them towards other people. I've had so many friends tell me, I do this, this, and this for my friends and my family, whatever. I never get any return. I don't get that satisfaction of them doing the same thing. And it's like, you got
right,
to remember, not everybody is you. Not everybody is Cameron. Not everybody is Anthony, whoever it is. And you have
mhm,
to realize that and be okay with that, and
yeah,
not let yourself down because they're not meeting expectations that they would don't even have for themselves. So just be
yeah.
careful of the standards you set on yourself and other people is really one thing that I was thinking about and wanted to share.
Man, that is an excellent cheat code, man. I think, man, I have a lot to say on that, but I'm not even gonna, delve into it. But
That'll be for part two
the
next
yeah,
podcast.
yeah. The little the little thing that I'll add to it, man, is I swear that me and you are the same person. Like
Yes, we are.
it's in a lot of aspects. But I think that that's been something that I've definitely had to learn and realize that I was doing, setting standards for myself or setting standards in my head that I thought other people were setting for me. But really, my dad was joking with me the other day, and he was like, "Yeah, I really do hope your thing, that works, you working for yourself and everything works out, um, because I would struggle as a boss. Like I would set standards for people, and I'm like, yo, this is what you need to do, and if you're not doing it, why aren't these criteria being met? And obviously, there's a learning curve. I would adapt if I had to be in that constraint or whatever it is. Um, but yeah, I tend to I hold very high standards for myself, and um, in return, I hold high standards for other people. And when it's not met, I get disappointed or down on myself. In terms of I'm not doing enough, or people just aren't appreciative of things I do for them. But that's not really what's happening. So, Anthony, man, I really appreciate you taking the
Of
time to
course.
come on the podcast, man. It's a great podcast. Um,
Yeah.
he was telling me before we had the podcast, man, he didn't want to ask to be on the podcast, but that he was excited to be on it. And it honestly just slipped my mind, to you and to the people, man. It honestly just slipped my mind to have him on the podcast. And we got some great guests lined up as well in the future. But yeah,
Yes,
this
sir.
was this is definitely the longest episode by far. I think it's definitely a great episode. And yeah, we'll wrap it up here. Was there anything
Yeah.
that you wanted to say at the end?
Yeah. Of course, thank you as always. When I heard you were taking a whole semester off, I was just like, I know exactly what it's for, and I'm happy he has this opportunity.
Yeah,
You have worked so hard to get where you're at right now in life, and I'm glad that you have the opportunity to pursue this. And I
mm,
just want you to know I'm going to be with you 100% of the way. I know your work ethic, I know your morals, your standards, all of that stuff. And I'm willing and able to support in any way possible, whether it's the KX
appreciate
channel, whether if it's the Cam Chronicles channel, any other future channels, future endeavors,
it.
whatever.
Right, right.
I'm a fan of Cam. I'm a fan of Cam.
Yeah,
And I'm just so proud of you, man. Like, just so proud of you. Keep going, don't stop. And to all the people listening, stick with this guy. He knows what he's doing. He has a plan, and he's gonna do big things, whether you want to hear it or want to hear about it or not. I'm gonna be here in support. So that's
hey
all I
man.
really got to say about that.
Well, I really appreciate very, very much appreciated. And yeah, like you said, man, we got some big things planned. Obviously, I don't think I mentioned it in the podcast, but as you have seen by watching this podcast, if you made it this far, but if you made it in any minutes of this podcast, you've seen the new podcast little layout. It's a virtual, setup. Obviously, I haven't been able to do the in person studio. Well, because number one, my guests are not usually in the same state as me. And
Yeah.
it's not just easy to, meet with them, and I'm not big enough to fly them out and and to get them on the
Not
on the
yet. Give
set.
it a couple years.
But yeah, it's a little bit of an upgrade, and we're gonna upgrade it even further with a better background. I don't know what background I put, behind this for this one, but we're getting a custom background for the Camp Chronicles logo and everything. I know there isn't one right now, but we'll figure it out. Um,
Yes,
but
sir.
yeah, that wraps up the episode. To all my podcast people, appreciate you listening. As always, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like up the video if you're new. And see you guys in the next one. Peace out.